Who exactly needs life insurance?
Those are people who, if you passed away yesterday, there would be a financial liability for your family.
I have a group life policy. It's in my group benefit plan. Is that enough?
For the average person who, does have dependents, has a mortgage, or has some other liabilities that they need to take care of, this leaves them severely underinsured.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marcus Crossdale. I'm sitting down today with Eric at Policy Me so that we can learn a little bit more about both life insurance and CI. Eric, I think if we just ask you a couple questions right off the bat here, maybe we'll start with an easy one for you, kick things off.
Sure.
Who exactly needs life insurance in your mind?
So for people who actually need life insurance, those are people who, if you passed away yesterday, there would be a financial liability for your family and maybe some potential difficulty for them to continue their standard of living. So people like that could be families with kids where, if you passed away, your child would need to continue to survive and grow up, and you would want to make sure there's a nice financial cushion for them. Or families with other sorts of dependents, whether that's elderly parents, and even for people who have certain kind of debts, whether it's a mortgage or student loans, anything like that, where they wouldn't want their loved ones to stomach that financial debt, a life insurance policy is perfect for them. There's definitely people who don't need to get life insurance, and these are people who, let's say they're young, they're relatively healthy, they don't have any debts. If they were to pass away, there's not a huge financial liability for their family, maybe just funeral expenses. And then there's other people who have done a really good job with their personal finances, and they've built up a large set of assets where if they were to pass away, they're self-insured and they don't need to worry about that. So we really try and dive into what their actual need is, what their family situation is, and that way we can really help align them with a product that makes sense, and also making sure that their funds are going to where they need to in their personal financial picture.
What do you find in terms of pricing for these products? Is it something that's going to be really expensive for people? Is it something that's on the cheaper end? I think a lot of people are really focused on the price.
Yeah.
How do you see that changing for younger individuals versus older individuals?
Mhm.
Anything along those lines?
Yep. Yeah, so people often overestimate what they're going to spend on life insurance. When you start talking about, life insurance coverage amounts in the hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, because, a life passing away is a very significant event that can occur. So when you're talking about, anywhere from, let's say, 500,000 to $1 million in coverage, for the average 35-year-old male, he's looking to spend anywhere from about $15 to $50 a month for term life insurance for, a small term temp policy, which is affordable for the vast majority of the population. There's other products in the life insurance space, like permanent life insurance, which will pay out whenever you pass away. And those are much more expensive and are for different purposes, where those can run, 7.5 times approximately more expensive compared to a regular term life insurance policy. In regards to your question about the difference in pricing for younger individuals versus more experienced folk, is life insurance premiums are based on mortality rates. And so the older you get, the more expensive insurance premiums are going to be, because you're more likely to pass away within those older age categories. So for someone in their young 30s looking for $500,000 policy, anywhere from $15 to $50 a month, if you're getting a little bit older, maybe in your later 40s or 50s, that's when mortality rates start to tick up, and you could spend anywhere from $50 to $75 a month for a similar policy.
Right. So what you're saying is, if I'm a younger individual who wants, a term life policy there,
Mhm.
I can just not get a few coffees a week and it's going to pay for my life insurance policy.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. $1 a day.
$1 a day. That's
Yep.
perfect. So just
Yep.
cut back on the Starbucks and I'm good to go.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I heard you throw around a couple of terms there. I know I heard term life, whole life policies.
Mhm.
Can you maybe talk to us a little bit and let me know, what's the difference between those two types of life insurance policies, or just explain them a little bit further so that others can know as well?
Sure. Yeah, that's usually the big question that people have when they're talking about life insurance is they've heard of one or the other, and they really want to understand, okay, what policy is best for them. So in the insurance world, for life insurance in particular, there's two types. You can get a term insurance policy, which is fixed for a certain amount of time. So if you need coverage anywhere from 10 to 30 years traditionally, term insurance will cover that specifically and pay out if you pass away during that time frame, which is why these policies are much more affordable. The other type of insurance is permanent life insurance. So if you've heard the terms whole life insurance, term to age 100, universal life insurance, that's a permanent policy. And when we talk about permanent, that's a policy that's guaranteed to pay out whenever you pass away. And because of those guarantees, it's a much more expensive product, which is where when people get the notion of, well, life insurance is expensive, they've probably been shown pricing for a permanent policy. And those policies are great for certain things like estate planning, final expenses, or if you're in a high income tax bracket, you've maximized your tax sheltered investment accounts, whether that's your TFSA, your RRSP. There's a good opportunity for you to get some tax sheltered growth in a permanent life insurance policy. But for the average person who's concerned about protecting their kids while they're young, being insured while they're up until their retirement age, so protecting them, their income earning potential, which is what most professionals are concerned about, a term life insurance policy is a perfect fit for them because it's affordable, allows them to focus on building their investments as well, and then also protecting them for the period that they need coverage the most.
Perfect. I mean, maybe we can just go a little bit further on that point as well. Could you maybe just let me know of, maybe an archetype of someone, like a kind of perfect situation of someone who might need a term life policy, and then vice versa, kind of the information around someone who might need more of a whole life, just a general, the average person who does this, is this your old, might need term life, easy to understand.
Exactly.
Who needs what?
Sure. Yeah. So one common situation that I see specifically for term life is, an individual in, their early 30s or to their 40s who, they've just recently purchased a home or they're planning to, they're thinking about kids or they've already started having them. In that situation, the term life insurance policy is the perfect one for them because it provides them with a sufficient amount of coverage to either protect their mortgage over the amortization period, whether that's anywhere from 10 to 25 years. And it also pairs up really well with while their kids are young. So if they have, kids anywhere from, 1 year to 5 years old, they can set up a policy for anywhere from 10 to 30 years and be protected until, that child is grown up and is able to make their own financial decisions and not be dependent on the family anymore. The other side where permanent policies become a better fit for individuals is typically where I'll see older individuals who, are in their 50s, relatively speaking, who, they've already had a term life insurance policy and that's coming to at the end of the term and they're considering what their needs are. They're at a bit of a crossroads where they need to determine, okay, the kids have moved out, the mortgage is basically paid off. What's our concern for coverage now? And so that might be where estate planning comes into play or, final expenses covering for funeral costs. And in that instance, a permanent policy is the perfect fit for them because it's going to pay out when their family's going to need it the most.
That's perfect. I also like how you touched on length of policy there as well for term life.
Right.
We get a lot of people and a lot of people that we work with who, they know they want term life. They just don't know how many years they want that term life to extend to. Is there anything that you can kind of talk about in that kind of light as well?
Yeah, that's a good thing to bring up because there is some hesitancy for people to commit to a term length when, if we're talking 30 years, like who knows what'll happen.
Yeah,
like
I can barely commit to what I'm doing for lunch tomorrow, let alone a term life policy.
Exactly. Right? A lot of people will be hesitant when there's an immediate need for them to be protected, but they don't want to jump into something so long term. What's great with a lot of term life insurance policies is you actually have an opportunity to extend them. So in particular here at PolicyMe, if you purchase a life insurance policy, let's say you start with a 500,000 term 10 policy, it's relatively affordable, but you're thinking, well, maybe I'll have more kids or I'll upgrade the mortgage in the next couple of years. And so I may need a longer term length. What we can do is in the first 5 years is actually just extend that term length for you without needing to ask for any additional underwriting questions. So no medical, even if your health has changed. And it allows you to have that additional flexibility without committing before, let's say your life is more materialized and you see a clearer vision of what your life's going to look like over the next couple of decades.
Right. Okay. That's great to know. I know the length of policy, that's where we get the most questions on, they start their application, people will go through and really get stuck at that point. So that's great to hear.
Yep.
That being said too, we do work with a lot of businesses, a lot of business owners as well. I was wondering if you could talk about why a business owner may need to look at kind of extending their own life insurance or taking out their own life insurance policy. And then if there's anything else in regards to, we get a lot of questions around, hey, I have a group life policy. It's in my group benefit plan.
Right.
Is that enough? I think I'm good. I don't need anything else. So maybe there's those 2 points around businesses and business owners specifically on how life insurance can help them.
Sure. Yeah. So just like we talked about with getting in the mindset of if I passed away yesterday, what would be the financial repercussions for my family? For business owners, they need to take the perspective of what would my business do without me? And for a lot of particularly small business owners who are key stakeholders in their business, if they pass away, there may be significant roles and responsibilities that they're responsible for that can't be carried out by anyone. So we call it key man insurance, where you might get a short-term insurance policy to protect that. Okay, if you had passed away yesterday, there's funds set aside for your corporation or for your company to hire outside help to assist with those key duties without putting financial strain on your company. So it essentially will help you buy some additional time without too much stress to ensure that your company can continue on. And this is extremely important if you have your family's, your sole source of income is coming from your company, and you want to see that all the work that you put into it, regardless of what life throws at you, is going to allow you to continue your business. So that's where a term life insurance policy fits really well with business owners. For people who have life insurance set up with their work benefits, that's a typical thing they'll mention is, I know I have these work benefits. It comes with life insurance, so I'm all set. When I usually talk to people, though, they don't know the specifics as to how it works or how much they're actually covered for. Traditionally speaking, people are covered for about 1 to 2 times their income, which, if you're looking at the average Canadian salary of around $60,000, it's anywhere from $60,000 to $120,000, which, if you don't have any dependents, or, you're relatively young, you don't have any liabilities, then, that's enough to cover for your funeral and to maybe set some aside to your family members or loved ones. But for the average person who, does have dependents, has a mortgage, or has some other liabilities that they need to take care of, this leaves them severely underinsured. The other part of this as well that people don't consider is life changes. A lot of people who may be watching this now are now working at a place that they didn't start at initially. And so when you move around, those life insurance benefits don't move with you. So if your health has changed and now you have to go to a different employer and you do want to get a policy, unfortunately, you won't qualify. The other part of this as well is your employer owns those benefits. So at any point in time, they can make changes to that plan and you have no say in that. So getting your own individual life insurance policy will ensure that, one, your loved ones are adequately protected and that your needs are covered perfectly. And then also that regardless of what happens in the future, that those benefits are going to be in place. And it gives you that flexibility and peace of mind to essentially, move careers if need be, and knowing that you have sufficient protection for your family.
No, that's great to know. And we get those questions all the time. Oh, I have group insurance. Is this enough? I think the other part too, you mentioned with portability, which I loved, is around waiting periods, right? If you're moving companies all the time, which is more and more popular these days, each company has their own different waiting periods. So you might be without benefits and without life insurance for months at a time if you don't have your own individual policy. So I love that you mentioned portability there as well.
Yep.
Another thing I think we could talk about as well, I know we really dove into life insurance, but there is other products like CI that PolicyMe offers now as well. Could you talk maybe a little bit as to just what CI is, just because I know a lot of people may not have heard of it. Everyone, when you think of insurance, you probably think of life insurance, but CI critical illness is another really great product that you guys just started offering as well. Can you maybe just shine a little light on what CI is?
Yep, sure. So critical illness insurance, we're actually really excited to talk about it because we just introduced this to our platform. So essentially, critical illness works in a similar way to life insurance, in the sense that a tax-free lump sum is paid out if certain conditions are met. If you get diagnosed with any of the listed health conditions, a tax-free benefit is paid out to you. And traditionally, what people will use that benefit for is to cover things like unseen medical expenses. So let's say you get diagnosed with cancer, and you need to take time away from work. Having funds set aside for that, to not worry about that financial stress, but also to use that money to get better. So things that may not be necessarily covered by a provincial health plan is a space where a critical illness plan can assist you in, maybe going to Germany and getting some special treatment for, whatever illness you've been diagnosed with. So here at PolicyMe, we actually took a very strong approach with developing our own critical illness product. We actually cover 44 illnesses and conditions, which is extremely high compared to the rest of the industry. Just from my experience with looking at group benefit policies, I've actually found it somewhat far and few in between to cover critical illness from the get-go. Yep. And even the ones that cover it are typically only covering the big four critical illnesses, which is your cancer, heart attack, stroke, and coronary bypass surgery. We do that in 40 more. So the critical illness policies are really great if you're looking to supplement some disability insurance or your existing health insurance plan, and that maybe if you have a family health history of just certain illnesses, this will ensure that okay, if that diagnosis does come one day, that you're ready and prepared for it, and you can get the best treatment available for that particular illness.
No, I love hearing that as well. And you're right on the group side. It's not something that comes, standard with every plan like the life insurance side does.
Mhm.
It's something that is usually an additional add-on to the plan. Most individuals, I'm sure, wouldn't even know if you have it or not,
Mhm.
unless you're really taking that deep dive into your booklet and looking for those types of benefits. So any more like that we can shine on CI is always a good thing. So I'd love to hear that as well.
Mhm.
Is there any kind of right time, so to speak, to buy critical illness for yourself, or is it sort of like life insurance in the sense that the rates kind of stay the same or kind of increase as you get older?
Mhm. It's very similar to life insurance in that the rates do get more expensive as you get older. Critical illness insurance is actually more expensive per unit compared to life insurance because of the likelihood of an event occurring. It's much more likely that you get diagnosed with that critical illness than passing away. In terms of like the best time to buy a policy, obviously the younger you are, the cheaper it's going to be. What I tended to recommend to people is just to assess what their existing coverages are in place. If you have an existing disability policy, whether that's through your own like personal independent plan or through your group benefits, is okay, if you were to be diagnosed with something you need to spend time away from work, that disability, whether that assuming you have a short-term and long-term disability plan, is going to cover you for some time. So you don't have to worry about missing out on all your income while being away from work. And then also assessing, okay, do you have a large enough emergency fund set aside where you could have 3 to 6 months of funds set aside in an accessible account to cover for those unforeseen expenses. If you are missing those pieces of the puzzle, then a critical illness policy is the right fit for you. Typically, I've seen people get 1 to 2 times of their annual income, and that's set aside so that if that does ever happen, you get diagnosed with that, you don't have to worry about where money's coming from. You just have to focus on getting better.
No, that's great to hear as well. I think maybe we can end it on this. Is what would you give the advice for someone who is just starting to look into their own individual policies? They're looking at life, they're looking at CI, they just don't know where to start.
Mhm.
What are some of those first steps that they can do
Mhm.
if someone's thinking about life insurance, thinking about CI, but hasn't kind of pulled the trigger on it yet? What would you kind of recommend to them to start with?
So to start, I would like first just assess your own financial situation.
Right.
Assess, what potential risks your family is exposed to and what your personal financial goals are. So for a lot of people, it's actually getting organized, looking at, what benefits you have through work, where your checking account, savings account, investments are at, and then looking at, okay, we have this starting ground here. Maybe we want to get to, a certain retirement level. And to ensure that that happens, what are we protected for the what if scenarios, and then sit down with your loved ones and think about, okay, if this were to happen, are we in a good state or not, and if there's any potential gap there, that's when it really warrants a conversation with an advisor. Even if you're uncertain, there's a lot of value that comes with speaking with advisor. Like here at Policy Me, we employ non-commissioned advisors because we really our company mission here is to just provide the best advice to Canadians. And so with that, we like sit down with people, we discuss, okay, what their family situation is, why they're thinking about purchasing life insurance, what their assets are, what their liabilities are, do a needs assessment, and then talk through them and say, hey, is this something that you think is valuable? Does this make sense for your budget? And then from there, we can give some recommendations as to which policy would be best if that's the route that you decide to go.
And is there any tools at Policy Me, maybe self-serve tools that
Mhm.
individuals can use even before speaking to an advisor? I know sometimes people might be a little intimidated to kind of get on the phone or kind of meet that in person. Is there any tools at Policy Me that people can use just online to kind of self-help, so to speak?
We've actually developed our own calculator to determine what your needs are for life insurance. So that looks at things like what your income is, what your expenses are, any other liabilities. And then we crunch the numbers, then look at, okay, based on what you've disclosed, you would need about this much in protection over this term length. And then we give some other recommendations as well, depending on what your overall risk tolerance is. So that's a really good starting place for people who are just trying to think, okay, is there a need for life insurance there and what it could potentially be? What I usually recommend to people is to start with that. It's a really good place to start having that conversation. Some people feel confident enough to move forward on their own and submit an application. Other people like speaking with an advisor because, sometimes there are like things, people are planning on having kids or purchasing a house, and then that affects what their needs are. So it doesn't hurt to run that assessment by with an advisor, but we do what we can here to ensure that we have the tools and resources available for people to learn about life insurance and get a good recommendation for their particular needs.
Right. That's exactly it. You can start online. You can start with an advisor. Either way, whatever you're feeling comfortable with, you guys have a solution for them in that sense too.
Exactly.
So we have a lot of different clients who have been asking us, to purchase their own individual life insurance or own individual CI. What are some of the benefits of going with PolicyMe as a Benefits Connect client to get that product?
So in terms of your clients looking to get some more life insurance coverage and extend their group benefits, PolicyMe has set up a platform that's extremely easy for them to get insurance. Not only have we made life insurance an extremely easy online application process, but you can get anywhere from $100,000 to $5 million in coverage. And 70% of the people who apply online can actually get coverage without a medical. One thing that we've actually set up exclusively for your clients is 2 months of free coverage. So if they actually apply through your platform, they can start their plan for $0 and get that life insurance policy 2 months free. Another reason why people actually go for us to extend their group benefits is simply cost. Is because we're a startup that's utilizing technology, we've been able to reduce a lot of overhead costs that traditional life insurance companies would have to stomach. And so with that, typically you'll see our rates about 10 to 20% cheaper compared to the competition. And not only that, but even with applying with a partner, for example, we can give a 10% discount in the first year to both applicants, even if they apply for different coverage amounts. So in terms of those people looking to bump up their coverage, we have a really seamless solution where even if they decided to do things from a self-serve perspective, they can go on policyme.com, review some quotes, get a recommendation with our calculator, and then go through that online application process. It's a really one-step process to get started, and it'll give them a lot of confidence that they've gotten a good life insurance policy in place that supplements their benefits.
That's perfect. So 2 months for free and low cost rates sounds like a perfect scenario.
Exactly. That's what we're hoping to create here.
Well, thanks so much, Eric. I think that's it for me. It's been really great chatting with you today, learning a little bit more about life insurance, learning a little bit more about CI, and understanding how that impacts your group coverage as well. So lots of moving pieces, but hopefully this helps everyone kind of get their own lives organized and kind of kickstart into looking more into life insurance and CI. So I appreciate the insights.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks everyone for listening. Really appreciate you spending the time today. Thanks again for Eric for stopping by and teaching us a little bit more on both life insurance and CI. If you do have any questions or want to know more about PolicyMe, feel free to reach me. My email address is right on the screen here, marcus.crossdale@benefitsconnect.ca, or you can give me a call at 905-952-9870. Thanks again, Eric. And if anyone else has any questions, everyone knows how to reach me.